Our presentation this morning is by Robin Baker, his talk is entitled The Barlow Road on Laurel Hill. Robin's background is in hiking and exploration. He joined the Mazamas in 1965 and mountain climbed, backpacked, and hiked with them for several years, climbing all the Cascade Mountain volcanoes and numerous other peaks. He was an avid backpacker through the 70s and 80s, doing extensive solo off-trail backpacks in the Eagle Cap Wilderness and Columbia Gorge, among other locations. At 73, he is no longer climbs or backpack, but is still an avid hiker and enjoys birding and botany while out on the trail. So let me turn it over to Robin Baker.
Thanks, Dave. As Dave said, my presentation is on the Barlow Road on Laurel Hill. And here's a location map for those participants who are out of state, showing the location of the Barlow Road around Mount Hood in the northern Cascades. And here's a more detailed map of the location of the Barlow Road coming south from the Dalles on the right-hand side of the slide and coming through by the White River through the toll gate over Barlow Pass, and Laurel Hill is right about in here. What I'll be talking about, I'll first show the explorations I and others have done on Laurel Hill the last 5 years. And then I'll show you where the 1846 ruts are located, and we'll look over some historical maps of the area. And then review Jim Tompkins' shoot narrative. Jim was president of NW-OCTA for several years and has several publications on the Barlow Road. And then I'll review an imperfect Barlow Road chronology, and I'll explain what I mean by imperfect. And then the fun part, we'll have some photos of the ruts on the ground today that I've taken during the 5 years I've been exploring up there. We have a map showing all the GPS tracks of the explorations that I and others have done during those 5 years. Government camp is just out of the picture on the right. There's a snow park called Glacier View Snow Park right here. This red line is Highway 26. There's a road cut going through here. Heritage marker next to Highway 26 over here, and a prominent chute here with a Forest Service trail that a lot of people have hiked. Across the freeway, there's a saddle, and Laurel Hill proper is this mountain right here. The original 1846 route is determined by the numerous sources, not only our explorations, but publications from Stephen Dow Beckham. There's some Francis E. Williamson maps from 1928, and we'll get to those later in the presentation. In 1993, Oregon Trail posts were put up along the original route for the sesquicentennial. Got that out finally, and that's shown by the red OT circles here. And in 2011, Bus Gibson led a Oregon Archaeological Society hike of the route, and I'll show that to you also. We have several sections here. The first section being over here by Ski Bowl West. I think people have looked at those ruts through the near the parking area. Glacier View Snow Park here. There's a signed Forest Service trail that goes through the woods here and ends at the road cut. On top of this hill here, this is what most people call Laurel Hill. I'll occasionally refer to it as Heritage Marker Hill because it's the hill above where the Heritage Marker is located along the along Highway 26. Fourth section is the road up the East Ridge of Laurel Hill and down to the Pioneer Bridle Trail, which is this dashed red line. And then a section that comes from the Pioneer Bridle Trail over a knob down to a place called Hunter's Camp. This is kind of a back door, and Hunter's Camp is a large flat area. And then finally down the final steep descent into Camp Creek here. This is a GPS track of the 2011 Oregon Archaeological Society Bus Gibson hike. And you can see he pretty much follows the blue line that I have developed over the last, I and others have developed over the last 5 years. And here's some the photo locations that I will eventually show of all these different routes. This orange route is a wagon road, a constructed road, as opposed to just a route through the woods, so to speak. And this section over here, which is the location of the final Barlow Road down to a place called Kiwanis Camp here, and then out this road. This is Kiwanis Camp Road, Road 39, where the road eventually ended up sometime prior to 1903. Now we'll look at some historical maps of the area from 1911 to 2002. This is a USGS topographic map from 1911 showing Laurel Hill and the Barlow Road. This is the final phase or the final location of the Barlow Road. This is the route that John B. Kelly drove in 1903 with his white steamer Stanhope electric automobile to government camp. First auto to government camp in 1903. There's also an early pioneer, Esther Kelly Watson, who would camp at government camp every summer from about 1903 through 1916, and she wrote up her reminiscences in a book by Ivan Woolley called Off to Mount Hood, which was published by the Oregon Historical Society. And so she has a good reminiscence of coming up this road to government camp every year for about 10 or more years. Here's a detail of that map showing the Laurel Hill saddle here. I call this kind of Laurel Hill proper. And this over here is really the Heritage Marker Hill, Heritage Marker being by the freeway, which is not shown on this map here. And I've shown the approximate location of the road cut. So another old map, 1915 Oregon National Forest map, showing the final route to government camp and the twin bridges. There was two bridges over the Zigzag River. That was one of the obstacles to building a road down there in the first place, was the fact that you had to cross the Zigzag River twice. And then a little bit later, the 1924 USGS topographic map. And this shows the Mount Hood Loop Highway built at that time to government camp, showing the alignment here. The dashed line through here is the old Barlow Road at that point. And I've marked the Laurel Hill saddle here and where the road cut is. You can see the contour lines here. It's a kind of a broad ridge up here. And as you get down under this section where the Heritage Marker chute is, it comes out in a long ridge here. So basically a broad ridge kind of narrowing and coming out like this. So keep that in mind. The GLO didn't manage to get up there and survey the area until 1928, but the surveyors did note a trail bearing northeast and southwest when they hit the top of Laurel Hill here. When crossing Camp Creek down here on their survey, they didn't note any road or trail down here, and that's pretty interesting. And Francis Williamson was a Forest Service employee who drew several maps of this Barlow Road area. This was in 1928. I got these maps from Stephen Dow Beckham, and I've highlighted them to show the different routes that he shows. The yellow is really the final alignment as we go down through here, and the orange is the previous road. This is the Pioneer Bridle Trail now out this way, but the Pioneer Bridle Trail was built up this road, this existing road. He labels this the old Barlow Road, the yellow, and then the brown he shows as the old Oregon Trail. I've highlighted a couple of S turns here. These are in Esther Kelly Watton's reminiscence in the book Off to Mount Hood, where she and her family would come up and do the double S turns. They called Laurel Hill the double S Hill. So pretty interesting stuff. But that was in the early part of the 1900s. And we have the chute here, and we'll move on to his map to the west here. Here's the chute again. He shows the Barlow Road kind of bypassing that chute and coming down through here to the saddle, and then out. This is now the Pioneer Bridle Trail, and its old alignment switchbacking down the hill here to Kiwanis Camp Road and the Meeting Rock location. And next we'll show some photos from another researcher on the hill, William J. Barlow Bill Williams, in the early 1940s. I don't have his map. I found this manuscript with 25 photographs at the Oregon Historical Society. I'll show you 3 of those maps here, but his actual map was missing. So. And he's showing the route coming around and bypassing our chute here. And it's rather academic, actually, whether they came down here or over here. They ended up over in the saddle here before ascending Laurel Hill. And this is, he labeled this a deep trench somewhere near the bottom of Laurel Hill. And I don't know where the location of this is because I don't have the map, but I'll show one of my own photographs later that might coincide with this location. And his third photograph here, zoom in a bit. This is where he says the Barlow Road met an existing road. And this looks to me like the Woodlot Road location. You see a road coming through here to the right, and there's a rock wall here. You see the square post here with a hanging sign, which I can't read. And Bill has placed a white flag in the middle of the Barlow Road going straight up the hill this way. But again, don't know the exact location. And this is one of Stephen Dow Beckham's maps from his one of his publications, The Barlow Road, an Historical Study, Volume 2 from 1979. Right about here is Glacier View Snow Park. This is the Pioneer Bridle Trail. The 4C is one of the sections in his text. But he shows the actual Barlow Road kind of coming up the ridge here. Pioneer Bridle Trail here and Highway 26 here. This he labeled this area here. This is the road cut through Highway 26. He labeled, he didn't label the map, but in his text, he says this is the location of his chute number 1. And then over here, near the heritage marker, that was his chute number 2. But he didn't label the map. And his chute 3 is further to the west. That's on the next map, and that was, he labeled that the 3rd steep descent. And this again is from his volume 2 publication of the Barlow Road and Historical Study. There's a kind of a gap in between these 2 maps. So part of it isn't here, but he shows the Pioneer Bridle Trail here, and this is the alignment in the late 1970s Hunters Camp, and this is what he labeled the 3rd steep descent to Camp Creek. The Highway 26 coming around here. The map curve where you can pull off and park and then look at Tom, Dick, and Harry Mountain, Silent Rock Gap through here. And this is his map from the 1992 National Register of Historic Places nomination form. We'll zoom in a little bit there. And this is the crest of Laurel Hill. This map is oriented with east to the top, so bear that in mind. Glacier View Snow Park and Government Camp are up the top of the map, and this is where he located his chute 1 into the road cut. The top of the hill, what I'm calling the heritage marker hill here, and his chute number 2. He's showing the Pioneer Bridle Trail coming around through here, through the equestrian tunnel under the old loop highway, which he shows here and here. And he shows after they came down his chute number 2, they turned to the north and went up here to the saddle, which I've marked, heritage marker being right here on the side of the freeway. Pioneer Bridle Trail coming through here. Here's the road down to Kiwanis Camp. And he labels this, which I've highlighted as a road trace, but this is the actual original Barlow Road coming up this way. And this is a pretty important map. This map I originally got from Henry, but subsequently found full copies of it at the Clackamas County Historical Society. But this was done by the 1988 Barlow Road Workshop Committee that was set up by the Clackamas County Planning and Economic Development Division. Jim Tompkins, Clara Belcher, Michael Jones, and others were on that committee. And this is showing 5 chutes. And I don't know how they came to decide that there were 5 chutes. Stephen Dow Beckham had 3, but the committee ended up with 5. And it's just kind of showing their location. Hunter's Camp is right here, is on top of Laurel Hill. This map is pretty is a large map covering a large area, so it doesn't show a lot of detail. And the Clackamas County Planning and Economic Development Division published a book, Maps of the Barlow Road, and this is one of their maps here. There's a couple maps that I'll show, showing Laurel Hill. This is where the chute is by the heritage marker. And you'll note the dashed line is an alternate route. And here's an alternate route down here going along Camp Creek. And you'll kind of recognize the significance of that once we get to Jim Tompkins' maps. And here's the next map to the west. Again, the road going to Hunter's Camp and then down to Camp Creek here, and then showing the alternate route down along Camp Creek and showing the location of the Pioneer Meeting Rock. For those out of state who don't know, the Meeting Rock was no longer there. It was destroyed by the Oregon Department of Transportation at some point when they were building Highway 26. So we needn't be looking for that. And from 1988, we'll move on to 1996. And this is a map from Jim Tompkins' publication, Discovering Laurel Hill and the Barlow Road, published by the Oregon Trail Foundation. He's showing 5 chutes, and he's also showing a route down Camp Creek here. And various other, the dark line is the freeway. This line here is the old Mount Hood Loop Highway, the 1924 road versus the late 50s modern highway. And here's the detail here. And one thing that we notice about this map is that this dashed line here is the old loop highway, but it's oriented incorrectly. Jim's got it oriented northeast and southwest, but in fact it's oriented east and west. So it makes it a little difficult to figure out, for instance, like where was his chute to? It came off of the first loop, but the first loop is actually over here somewhere. But more on that later. Now this map was taken from one of Jim's 35 millimeter slides. I had 500 plus slides digitized, and this was one of the slides that was among them. This is a hand-drawn topographic map, and again, this is a little difficult to read. He's got his chutes marked. There's chute 1, chute 2, chute 3, but it's kind of hard to read. So I went ahead and annotated it, kind of and highlighted some locations here. Is chute 1 coming from Glacier View Snow Park area west and down into Camp Creek and out this way, and then the locations of his other other 4 chutes. And curiously, this map shows the Mount Hood Loop Highway here coming across the road cut here, and he has it oriented correctly east and west. Comes around like this and goes out. This becomes Kiwanis Camp Road down here. And here's the Highway 26 is a little bit darker line here, comes around like this. This map is funny because he has some really dark contour lines in here, so you got to study it to figure out which is which. So his 2002 maps which were only published on his website, he added color, which is helpful, and shows where he thought the various chutes and where the various routes went. Here's a detail of the what I call the heritage marker hill, heritage marker being right here, and his chute here that we've been to. He has the inaccurate orientation of the old loop highway here, but he's showing the Barlow Road coming straight across here, coming down the chute and then down into Camp Creek here. This is his chute 2 down into Camp Creek, and his chute 1 directly down Camp Creek. And to get to chutes 4 and 5, you had to go down over here, this way. So to make sense of all of this stuff, I hand annotated, his 2002 map, kind of color coding it for the different phases. Like he had chute 1 from 1846 to 1848. So I colored that yellow, and his chute 2 in brown, and the purple is the chute 3, and the green is the chutes 4 and 5. And I drew in the correct alignment of the old loop highway here, and where his chute 2 actually comes down here. At this point, I didn't have his 1999 map, so I just sort of guessed of where it might be, and this is luckily fairly accurate. And this is the route down off of the hill out to chutes 4 and 5, but he curiously doesn't define a chute here. Although if one is, say, standing at the top of this chute and looking off to the north, this slope here is quite steep. So now we'll go into have a discussion of his Barlow Road narrative. And this is from this Oregon Trail Foundation 1996 publication. So how Philip Foster and the crew used axis saws and fires to clear the route. And they went around large obstacles, didn't have horse-drawn shovels or cut hillsides or fill gullies. They didn't do a lot of work, in other words. And they always, he talks about the wagons being subject to tipping over if they had to go sideways or contour or side hill, and they went straight up and down hills. There were no switchbacks. So all of this is pretty good stuff. And again, this is actually from his 2002 web publication about how the roadbed was destroyed within a few years, and rocks being dislodged by the wagon wheels, and dragging trees as anchors, and how any soil left would be eroded by the next winter's rain and snow melt off, and it became necessary to move on to a new location further west. This is basically his logic for why there were a succession of chutes on the hill. They wore out basically. And he had a chute sequence here, chute 1, 46 to 48. And I showed that on my hand-drawn map here that I showed a little bit ago. He also had a stagecoach road, and I have no idea where he got information on the stagecoach road. I've not been able to find any information on any stagecoaches on Laurel Hill. But there you have it. There's basically 5 main problems with his narrative. The first is Sam Barlow's petition to the Provisional Oregon Legislature, where he said he blazed the road. And there's a narrow canyon on Camp Creek, which I will show you on the map, the LiDAR map, and the 3 benches mentioned in Pioneer Diaries, and the ascents mentioned in Pioneer Diaries, and the elusive locations of chutes 4 and 5. I mentioned that Stephen Dow Beckham had 3 3 chutes, and Jim and the Clackamas County Workshop Committee had 5 chutes, but they seem to move around, but I'll cover that. First off is the Sam Barlow petition. It isn't where Sam Barlow said he blazed the original road, and that, which is actually pretty clear. The petition says thence west 4 miles to Laurel Hill, thence down Laurel Hill to Falls Creek, which is Camp Creek, 2 miles thence down said creek, Falls Creek or Camp Creek, 3 miles to Zigzag Creek. And we can figure out where Barlow's route met Camp Creek by measuring back from the Zigzag River crossing 3 miles. The Stephen Dow Beckham in this Barlow Road Historical Study Volume 1 talks about Isom Cranfield's 1847 diary entry. He stated that the party descended Laurel Hill on 3 benches. The last is much the longest and most difficult. 2 miles further brought us to a small branch, 3 miles further to Zigzag Creek. So Isom Cranfield's diary kind of echoes Sam Barlow's petition where he said he blazed the road. Beckham further states one possible reading of these entries, especially that of Isom Cranfield, is that his party traveled much of the length of Laurel Hill and after 2 steep descents made a final downhill run to Camp Creek watershed. Only 3 miles further to the west did his party come to the Zigzag River. So we'll measure that out. I'm showing here the blue dots here, the both sides of the Zigzag River crossing here. I don't know how many of you have actually been to this site. Steve Bingold and I were there. What was it, last year, I believe, or the year before? And I drew in a kind of approximate route here, measuring 3 miles back, and this is where we end up. At the bottom of this chute, Hunter's Camp's up here. This is Stephen Dow Beckham's 3rd final descent to Camp Creek. So that's where we end up when we measure back from the Zigzag River crossing. And I had to show Sam Barlow's petition since I went to all the trouble to find it on microfilm with the Oregon Historical Society. But this is his petition to the Oregon legislature, provisional Oregon legislature, after he got back from crossing over and blazing the road. Next, we'll talk about problem number 2 with Jim's narrative, the narrow canyon on Camp Creek. And there's a narrow vertical wall canyon along the creek. No pioneer diaries mention this canyon, and no diaries mention Yoakum Falls. Shows clearly on the LiDAR map, which I'll show in a minute, about 700 feet long and quite narrow. This is what they call a bare earth hillshade map here. Jim's Route 1 comes right down here by Yoakum Falls and then follows Camp Creek on down. His chute 2 came down through here somewhere to Camp Creek and followed the road on down. And his chute 3 comes down the chute here on above the heritage marker and then down here to Camp Creek and follows it on down. But from this map, you can tell that there's this very, very steep, narrow canyon here. This map is color coded. The green shows areas that are more or less level. The yellow is sloped areas, and the orange is even more steeply sloped. And we get into the red, which is close to vertical, and the purple, I think, is pretty much near vertical. One thing to note on here also is the width of the canyon here compared to the the width of the Mount Hood Loop Highway up above, coming around like this. We can also see, as an aside here, some of the LiDAR traces of the wagon road coming down through here like that. And there's a hiker trail over here that people use to come down after visiting the top of the chute here, after climbing from the heritage marker up the stone steps and around the highway and coming up the trail. And here's a detail of the Yoakum Falls area, and I've marked where his Gym Chute 1 comes down. Yoakum Falls is, there's a kind of a 30-foot basalt cliff that stretches across the canyon here. There's actually a steep hiker trail that comes down this slope to the base of Yoakum Falls, which we see here. This basalt wall stretches across the canyon there, and this is a collage from the OregonHikers.org website, an early photograph, probably from as late as the 1940s. You could, because of a lot of the trees had been burnt, you could see the Camp Creek coming down here over Yoakum Falls from the old Loop Highway. You can't now because it's all grown up again, but they show the hiker trail coming out here and down to Yoakum Falls. So a lot of people do visit that area just because of the entry in the OregonHikers.org website. Moving on to problem 3, the 3 benches mentioned in Pioneer Diaries. Isom Cranfill descended in 3 benches, lasts as much, the longest and most difficult. This is a recurring theme. And Abigail Jane Scott Dunaway in 1852, 3 benches where the teams could stop to rest. So where are these 3 benches and the 3 descents to those benches if we are looking at Tompkins' route down Camp Creek, his chute number 1. And here's a map of the route with the blue dots coming right down past Yoakum Falls, down Camp Creek and on out to Meeting Rock out here. Basically to orient yourself on the map here. And then I've done a route profile here showing that route. We have 1,000 feet on the x-axis and 15,000 on the y-axis. This is Glacier View Snow Park up here, and then Camp Creek, actually Woodlot Road down here, and Camp Creek is actually, well, this route meets Camp Creek right up here at Yoakum Falls and coming down through here. So the question being, where are the 3 benches if one took this route? There's really the drop into Camp Creek by Yoakum Falls, and that's it. The rest is following the creek down. And I also did a profile. This is his chute 4 route from, this is from the, I think this is the 1999 map, but where they actually come around, say out the Pioneer Bridle Trail and then drop into Camp Creek later. If you see, I've sort of filled in the Highway 26 road cut here to simulate the fact that there wasn't a road cut there at the time. And his descent down to the Laurel Hill Saddle across the freeway from the heritage marker. This is one descent here, and then and the descent down chute 4 to Camp Creek here. So really we have on this route, we really only have this one descent, And this would be the one bench here. This is the descent to Camp Creek itself. But no three descents on this route either. And this is the profile from the 1846 route, and showing the benches here. We come down from the Glacier View Snow Park area here, across over here. This is the Highway 26 road cut, across the top of that heritage marker hill, and then down, either down the chute that we all know, or down the hiker trail area. Doesn't matter, to the saddle. This is across the freeway from the heritage marker. Freeway sits atop this little pedestal here, and then going straight up the ridge of Laurel Hill, and then coming down the other side, basically down to the Pioneer Bridle Trail, what's now the Pioneer Bridle Trail, and following that around, and eventually going up a steep ascent up over the knob, and then down the backside to Hunter's Camp. So we've got three benches here, and this is the final drop, Stephen Dow Beckham's third steep descent, and to Camp Creek here. So this shows three benches. Problem number 4, there's also mentioned in the Pioneer Diaries, the ascents on Laurel Hill. Amelia Hadley ascended a hill called Laurel Hill, steep and dangerous. And David John Dinwiddie in 1853, very steep and rocky ascent, broke a wagon tongue. Okay, where are these ascents located if the immigrants used Tompkins' route and any of his chutes? There are no ascents involved with any part of his route. And here's the 1846 route that is showed in the first few maps of my presentation, of where the locations of the benches and the ascents. There's 2 ascents here on this particular route. So the last problem is of the chutes 4 and 5 and where they were located. Jim has different locations for these chutes on his various maps. Chute 4 in 96, he had it at the runaway truck ramp on Highway 26. His 1999 map showed it east of the runaway truck map, and his 2002 map showed it west of Hunter's Camp, so considerably to the west. Chute 5 was west of Hunter's Camp, and then his 1999 map showed it east of Hunter's Camp, and his 2002 map showed it again west of Hunter's Camp. And this is basically a map of what I just said. The 96 showed it coming down through the runaway truck ramp, and then his chute 5 down over here. 1999 map, the hand-drawn topo map from his slide collection shows the location here. And 2002, they're both west of Hunter's Camp, which is right here. Now his 500 plus 35 millimeter slides, aside from his photos of chute number 3, above the heritage marker, there was only 3 photos of chutes other than chute 3. This is his photo of chute number 2. I walked the old loop highway above his chute number 3 and tried to find this location. There aren't any real talus slopes below any of the loops of the old loop highway up there, so I'm at a loss to know where this was actually taken. It could possibly have been taken from Highway 26, looking down into chute 1, but this is chute 2, so I don't really know, but there it is. And this is his slides of chute 5. This is the 1999 orientation. The slide on the left was taken from probably that pullout near Silent Rock, and showing the route where it came down here. And there's this kind of this yellowish soil here. He drove around to this location and took this shot here, but this is where he thought it came down here. Nothing that I found in any of his documentation shows, talks about or shows that he actually walked any of these routes. So that's kind of a problem. So the chronology of the Barlow Road, emphasis on the word imperfect. I've got it divided into 3 phases, 46 to 1853 plus. This is the original road. And from what I've been able to find, the last pioneer to describe the difficult descent off Laurel Hill was Amelia Stewart Knight in 1853. Sometime after 1853, a wagon road was built up the west end of Laurel Hill, contoured to the south side of the saddle, and it was now the Pioneer Bridle Trail. And then it may have been built all at once or in segments. There's no documentation from any of the road companies that talk about when and where they built any of their roads. But I'm speculating that it may have been built in 1862 to take advantage of the gold rush near Baker City. They possibly thought that they would benefit from any traffic going east, so they wanted to make it a two-way road. And this particular phase here, 1853 to whenever it was routed down around Laurel Hill to avoid the hill altogether, is pretty murky. And by 1903, a road had been built up the zigzag, bypassing Laurel Hill altogether. So that's my imperfect chronology. So we'll get to the kind of the fun part here, the photos. And again, we're showing the original 1846 route. The Skibo West right here, Glacier View. A lot of us have walked this marked by the Forest Service out here to the road cut. The top of the hill here. This is showing there's ruts down here for a wagon road. Heritage marker here, saddle across the freeway, up the ridge, down to the Pioneer Bridle Trail, following the Pioneer Bridle Trail, then going up over this knob into the back side of Hunter's Camp, and then down Stephen Dow Beckham's third final descent to Camp Creek here. And the yellow dots are photo locations, which I'm going to show of this particular section of the 1846 route. We're going to start over here, but by the saddle here, and move west, and come down the steep descent here, at least to the freeway. And this is looking up the road swale from the Pioneer Bridle Trail, where the Pioneer Bridle Trail takes off to the left and contours around the south side of Laurel Hill. This route goes straight up the ridge, and this is the old swale here. And here's a view down that swale. It's my old high school buddy, Tom, who's a retired professional geologist. I took him and another old high school buddy, Casey, on this hike. My friend Casey asked, whether this could be an erosion gully. And, Tom said that it wasn't an erosion gully because you don't find erosion gullies on the crests of ridges. You find them on the sides of ridges, but not following up the crest. And up the hill a little further is one of the Oregon Trail posts that were placed in 1993 for the Oregon Sesquicentennial. So Teresa and Alex, this is on one of our official hikes. And you come up to the top of the ridge, you move off of that and come down to there's a saddle here. This location, you can walk out here and look right down a rock slide to the Pioneer Bridle Trail. But the road actually comes down through here. And I'll show a kind of a panorama of that, and a road coming off the crest of the ridge and then down near the saddle above the Pioneer Bridle Trail rock slide. And that's showing the saddle. And then the road kind of in the center of the frame now and going down to the right. And this is looking down from that section here. You'll note that we have up here, we have a slope, and down here we have a slope, but here it's pretty much level. So the wagons wouldn't tip over going down this. This goes down, it kind of follows down here, and then it's on sort of a small ridge, and then it moves over into a shallow gully, over onto another small ridge, and then over into another shallow gully, and kind of works its way around the top part of the hill. This is looking back up toward the saddle from down that swale. And then there's a traverse, which again is level, as you can see, to the second Oregon Trail post on the left-hand side of the photo. Jenny and Teresa and Steve. This is another of our official Northwest Octa hikes. I think we four were the only people on the hike, but there you have it. And then looking down from there, this is looking down toward the Pioneer Bridle Trail on the south side of Laurel Hill, the swale going down in that direction. And it meets the Pioneer Bridle Trail at a spring seep. You'll find the water here at the early part of the season. If you're there in September, you won't, this will all be dry. But but then it follows this flat area on the south side of Laurel Hill around to the west, and then we make another ascent up over, and there's a third Oregon Trail post here. This is a short steep ascent, and then we come across a knob. This is just east of Hunter's Camp, and then down into the backside of Hunter's Camp. And this is ruts coming down that hill. And there's an obvious giant cedar log there, 4+ feet in diameter, but you can see the swale underneath coming down this way. Next photo is down a little further, and here we have trees growing right in the middle of the swale. And back up here, you can see the cedar log back up here. So it's down just a little further. Coming down toward Hunter's Camp, our third bench. And we see this is more of a depression than a swale. Again, kind of depression coming down off of the hill. It's a Forest Service sign. This sign says original wagon road. So somebody at the Forest Service knows that the trail's over here. And finally to Hunter's Camp. And I suppose this is the Hunter's campfire, but I've never seen any hunters up there. There's a Teresa Fisher in the background. I think there's another Forest Service sign on that tree. This is a significant flat area. And if we step across the Pioneer Bridle Trail, which is very near this location, and we can go down the Beckham steep final descent. And this is Steve as we're getting ready to head down through the through the sword fern and the western hemlock and red alder, etc., down to the freeway. And here's a shot. He's actually standing in a trail rut there. Hard to see because of all of the fern growth. This was last summer. On going down, this is down a gully, remember, so there's a little more moisture here than there is on the crest of the ridge. So we get a lot of plant growth. And this, as we get down toward the bottom, this is the there's a trench actually that goes for a ways here. And this reminded me of Barlow Bill Williams' photograph of the trench that he found, that I couldn't tell you where the location was, but it may have been down here. And you see the freeway in the background. And you follow that trench down, and there's a when constructing the freeway, they had to excavate the side of the hill there. So there's a 20-foot vertical rock wall. So you've got to kind of walk across the top there to get down to the freeway. The actual water course or the drainage is ahead of Steve there. So it doesn't, the natural drainage doesn't come down that trough. So it wasn't created by the runoff. The runoff actually comes down over in this area over here. Okay, so the middle phase, Barlow Road, I'm calling the post 1853 wagon road, bypassing the most difficult segments. And this shows from the Laurel Hill saddle here, across the freeway from the heritage marker. This is what's now the Pioneer Bridle Trail, essentially. Except you get out here, the red line is the Pioneer Bridle Trail, the red dashed line, but the wagon road just goes straight down here. Pioneer Bridle Trail originally came up this section here, but when they built the freeway, they rerouted it over here so that people could cross here where visibility was good, rather than try and cross here where it was on the blind corner of the freeway coming through to the Silent Rock Gap here. And a brief look here at the Francis Williamson map here. There's some confusion about when the various roads were built, the actual constructed roads. Francis Williams shows the old Barlow Road coming down here. This is what I was calling the final phase, or the final road that bypassed Laurel Hill altogether, at least the steepest part over here. And then this orange is what's now the Pioneer Bridle Trail coming out this way. But Stephen Dow Beckham, in his Historical Study Volume 1, says that by the mid-1850s, alternative routes on Laurel Hill had probably been opened. Some rather traveling down the chutes, or 3 almost perpendicular descents where they had used drag logs or ropes tied to trees to lower their wagons, may have continued on west and descended the western toe of Laurel Hill to a site known to many as the Meeting Rock, Others drop to the north into the watershed of Zigzag River. Now in his volume 2, he says, it's possible, however, that as early as the 1850s, travelers on the Barlow Road had eliminated the third steep descent on Laurel Hill by dropping off to the north into the watershed of the Zigzag River. Those who used the Barlow Road at this date may have come down the first 2 chutes or descents, and in the vicinity of the present historical marker, then turned north and descended into the Kiwanis Camp area on the Little Zigzag River. And then finally, in the NRHP nomination form, he says, this earliest route, however, proved so difficult and terrifying that the road company, probably in the mid-1850s, opened a second road, which descended from the summit of Laurel Hill northwest into the Little Zigzag Canyon. This segment has good historical integrity for 1¼ miles through section 14 to Kiwanis Camp in section 15. So, and my question is, if there was a road down through Kiwanis Camp, which is down here, this yellow in the mid-1850s, when was this road out here constructed and used? We know that in 1853, Amelia Stewart Knight was the last immigrant to document in their diaries that they went down that steep final descent. So if by the mid-1850s they were going down here, when was this built? And seems to me that it was probably later. And I mentioned earlier the 1862 date. My reasoning being that the road company at the time wanted to take advantage of all of the traffic going to the gold mines near Baker City in 1862, and wanted to make the route a two-way route. So that's when the road construction happened. But that's there's no documentation on that. That's just kind of my feeling and my opinion of how that all shook out. And this portion of the photo session here, I'm going to show photos of going down the wagon road down here. The dashed line is the current Pioneer Bridle Trail, and this deviates partly from it, but it also part of it is the same as the Pioneer Bridle Trail. And here we're on the Pioneer Bridle Trail, and this is where the wagon road takes off down the hill. If you were just normally hiking along here, you wouldn't even probably notice where it came off. But walking down this little ways, we can see the wagon road, and pretty easy walking. Some of it's covered with salal at this point in time. Come to another little wet area here. The road going off this way. And again, I have a little video. If you're subject to motion sickness, you might not want to stare at this too hard. It's a little shaky. I'm holding the camera level and navigating the terrain at the same time. And only thing I can say is it's a good thing I wasn't also chewing gum. I'd have probably gone head over heels. But there's blowdown, on the old wagon road. And we're basically heading down toward, one of the segments of the Pioneer Bridle Trail at this point. And I actually successfully navigate that fallen tree. And we can see it slowly bending around a bit to the left. And this is where the video ends. I'm not going to try and navigate those double blowdowns with the camera. And this is taken from the Pioneer Bridle Trail, looking back up to that same road that we were just on. It comes down from down here and comes around to the Pioneer Bridle Trail here. A little bit further down, this is a photo of the wagon road. This is also the Pioneer Bridle Trail, but this is a wide wagon turn coming down through here. Normally, if you're hiking the Pioneer Bridle Trail, you'll come across a switchback, which is a hiker switchback, but it'll be a V shape. This is a wagon turn here. And then a little further down, there's another wagon turn in here, not so obvious. This is the road here, Pioneer Bridle Trail through the center part of it, but the road comes around here and then goes down here. The next photograph is taken from just below, looking back up. We have the road coming down here and coming around here and down this way, with the Pioneer Bridle Trail kind of splitting the difference. Here we're looking down the last part of the wagon road. You can see the freeway in the background. And then we hit the freeway and we're staring at Silent Rock. Somewhere on the other side of this of the freeway here, this wagon road went down this slope down to the Woodlot Road area, the gravel pit and Meeting Rock. Okay, so we have the final phase Barlow Road where we bypass Laurel Hill altogether. Shown in yellow here, Glacier View Snow Park up here, Kiwanis Camp down in here. I'm showing a couple of the S-turns here mentioned by Esther Kelly Watson. And this is the route of the 1903 rather, automobile ascent to government camp. And here I'll show some photographs. The yellow dots are the placement. I'll start below here. Glacier View Snow Park here. This is an old abandoned campground, Glacier View Campground or Mount Hood View Campground. It's got a couple of names, but the rut's going down all the way down into Kiwanis Camp down here. And this is the vehicle model, at least, of John B. Kelly's automobile that he took to government camp in 1903. I'll guarantee that when he got to government camp, the tires weren't white. But this is below the abandoned campground, one of the swales of the old road coming down here. Someone has put some pink surveyor tape here, so somebody else knows about it. Not sure who. And then down a little further, this is more of a depression coming down through the trees here. And it meets the old loop highway. And here we're looking, from the old loop highway down toward the Pioneer Bridle Trail, which is below it here, but there's a wide connector road in between them there. This is a photo from the Pioneer Bridle Trail looking back up toward the old loop highway, the other end of this little connector road. Early season photograph, probably May, still some snow. And this is the top S turn, which the road comes down this way and turns around this way, and you can see the bottom part of it down in here. And the road coming down from here, meeting this is the power line corridor here, cleared of trees, and kind of a rough road going up there too. And the road comes down along. This is all synonymous with the Pioneer Bridle Trail, but it comes right alongside the freeway at this point. And then coming down further toward the, eventually to the loop highway again. And coming through this is the equestrian tunnel underneath the old loop highway. The road having been there when they built the highway, so they put a put a tunnel underneath it. And then moving further west, we have what's probably a Civilian Conservation Corps wall built along the road. And here we have the junction with the road down to Kiwanis Camp. And they have a sign, a caution sign saying there's no exit. In other words, don't go this way. But I ignored the sign and walked down into, or toward at least the Kiwanis Camp here. And I did actually at one point get permission from them to explore in Kiwanis Camp. So they took me up to, they have an equestrian arena and a horse barn up there. This is just below that horse barn here for this part of the Barlow Road. This is the lower S turn. I didn't get a good picture of the S turn down there for some reason, but this is kind of just around the turn and looking down toward the camp. And we can see the blue roofs of some of the buildings down here. And this is where it comes out into the, into the camp here between the Bat Cave on the right and the laundry on the left. So we have finally reached the end of the trail. Now I'm going to be doing a series of hikes later in the season, starting on the Gate Creek in June on the east side to avoid the summer heat, hopefully. And on July 9th, we're going to do that Barlow Road on Laurel Hill hike again, the one that I showed coming up over the top and then down the wagon road on the west end of Laurel Hill. And then on July 23rd, Barlow Road at Barlow Pass hike. And this is kind of the Barlow Road on Laurel Hill. Generally, we'll start over here, hike up the Pioneer Bridle Trail, hike up the old loop highway to the Pioneer Bridle Trail, follow that around to the saddle, and then come up over here past these Oregon Trail posts, meeting the Pioneer Bridle Trail again, following this, coming up over the knob into the backside of Hunter's Camp. We will not be doing this because it's too funky. It's too difficult. We'll follow the old wagon road / Barlow / Pioneer Bridle Trail out west here, and then come down the wagon road here, and then back to our car shuttle here.
What's the total length of that, Robin?
It's probably about 2 miles, 2.5 miles maybe. There's some initial climbing, once you get up here to this saddle area, it's pretty much all the climbing is over. So there's some initial climbing, it's probably 400 feet total. It's not all that much. There's some blowdown, as you saw on even on the wagon road, some kind of, some rhododendron brush, but nothing very horrendous. It's actually quite easy walking, up the ridge.
Robert, when did you say they did the third alignment of the Barlow Road?
When it went around the hill.
Oh, when it went around the hill. We know that was in place by 1903 when John B. Kelly drove his automobile up it. But when that was actually constructed, Stephen Dow Beckham mentioned the mid 1850s. I think that's too early. I would say, and I speculated that it was in the 1860s when the road companies wanted to take advantage of, eastbound traffic going to the gold mines. The road companies were in business to make money, so they weren't going to build road just to avoid, a few immigrants having to come down this steep descent here. So that's my kind of my reasoning for the 1862 date.
Thank you.
But when that was actually in place, there's, if we had some records from the road companies, then we'd have more, more information. But I've not been able to find any. Stephen Dow Beckham doesn't mention any, and Jim Tompkins just doesn't really discuss the issue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Robin, very much. Excellent presentation. Very complex area to investigate because of all the different evolutions of routes through the area. I had a question about the chutes, and that some of them don't appear to, I couldn't quite follow where they were going in terms of the trails that were there. They're basically ways to get off of Laurel Hill. Is that fair?
Yeah, well, are you referring to the Jim Tompkins maps or
Well, that's one of the problems. Yeah, but we have so many different interpretations of that.
Yeah, no, he had his chute one went right down past Yoakum Falls into Camp Creek and then just followed that west.
Yeah.
So all of his other chutes were basically, at least chutes 2 and 3 were, alternate ways to get to that, that Camp Creek road. And then finally, after his chute 3, there at the Heritage Marker Hill, wore out, he speculated that they went out, following, he shows the Pioneer Bridle Trail coming out here. He doesn't talk at all about this road up here, coming out here and then going down to that road. And he has chutes 4 and 5, as I showed, in different locations on his different maps. So that was his, his interpretation. All of his roads, all of his chutes basically, eventually went down to that Camp Creek road. But as I showed the steep canyon through here,
Right.
I've stood on the brow of the steep canyon. Teresa Fisher down there, and we're looking 100 feet vertically into the creek, and there's no way. I mean, we couldn't even hike it, let alone somebody take a wagon through there.
Yeah, the other thing is both Robin and I and Jerry have tried to find those chutes, and we have not been able to find any real evidence of where those chutes were. We tried to walk them, and they just weren't there. And we actually walked up the whole canyon from Woodlot Road up Camp Creek Canyon to try and find remnants of the road going through there. We could find nothing that would indicate a wagon road going through that area.
Yeah, let me get to, let me show this again. Here we go. Teresa and I did this orange hike through here. These 2 red points here are where this left-hand red point is where we were standing on top of the cliff, looking down into the creek here. We ended up coming up over here and back to the Heritage Marker. The hike that Steve is just talking about was this red line here up Camp Creek, and then coming back up to the Heritage Marker here. No evidence of any of these any of these chutes. His chute 3 he has coming off of this off of the chute to here and then coming down into Camp Creek, and this blue through here and the red shows the route that you would take to get down to Camp Creek. And this is the obvious area that you would walk or take a wagon down, but there's no ruts.
Yeah, and we couldn't find the ruts that, if you go on the other side of Highway 26 where the runaway truck ramp is, that chute, we couldn't find any evidence of that chute ever existing either.
Yeah, this is the orange here is a hike that Teresa Fisher and I did to try and find, Jim had his chute 5 coming down here at one point on one of his maps, I think the 1999 map. And we did this hike to try and find any of those chutes in that area and just came up with zero. Basically what Barlow got over here, this Hunter's Camp area, which he came kind of down the backside here. He had there was three alternatives. One was to go down to the north here into the zigzag. Okay. If you've ever been there and looked over, it's long and steep. So second alternative was to come out the ridge here. If you could get out onto this area here, it would be easy to just come straight down here. But this ridge is very narrow and rocky with trees growing on top of it. So they would have had to first, take all the trees off the top and then level the top of the ridge since it's narrow and rocky. So their third alternative, the best alternative, but not necessarily a good alternative, was to come down this gully here. And this is what they did. And this fits the pioneer descriptions as well as the description of where he said he blazed his trail. From where they hit Camp Creek down here, 3 miles out to the crossing of the Zigzag River. Now we were out this last, 2 days ago, exploring up in this area here to try and find any remnants of coming down through here. But this area was, first of all, there's all the freeway talus. And there is a road that kind of comes out here, this Woodlot Road, but this area has been so heavily worked in the freeway construction. It's just a mess, and we couldn't really distinguish any ruts in that area.
Yeah, we did find road beds, but we couldn't determine if they were original Barlow road bed or artifacts from the construction of the freeway.
Yeah, there's roads coming out here like this. This is another hike that Teresa and I took around here, coming from the end of Woodlot Road here, coming around here. But this is a construction road for the freeway. It ends right here underneath. This is the map turn parking area up above here, and right at the base of the talus slope. They put in a drainage pipe over in this area here. So they drove and were working down in this area. I would imagine there was, dump trucks and bulldozers and all that kind of stuff to kind of manage all of the talus and all of that stuff. You can see in the LiDAR, there's another road actually up higher here. And we were probably on the start of that road. Woodlot Road is gated right here. The gravel pit, basically this is a gravel storage area now. There used to be a rock quarry here, but they've filled that in and planted it, and the road going up to it, they're starting to dump dirt and gravel on that and cover that up. So they're rehabilitating the area basically. And you can, back in the 1960s or maybe even into the 1970s, you could drive this road out into here and camp out in here. It was kind of a dispersed camping area, but it's gated now. The road's been resurfaced because of all of the dump truck traffic to, come and get gravel and then put it on Highway 26 during the winter.
Okay, I think we need to wrap this up now. We got a little more business to conduct about our future events. Thanks again, Robin, for the great work and the great presentation. I think this is a continuing story, though. There'll be more. So if you want to stop sharing, I'll pick it up.